It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight reviews of Betrayal, Slave Play, Derren Brown's Secret, Runboyrun, and Wives, plus an interview with
Ben West.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. Hello again, Leslie.
Hello, Charlie. Gee, it's been so long since I've seen you.
I know. All right, well, we have a lot to get to today, so we're going to start with Betrayal. This is the Harold Pinter play with Loki and Daredevil, better known as Tom Hiddleston and Charlie Cox, but also Zoe Ashton. Zoe Ashton. It is a three-person play told in flashback, basically. A man and a woman who, well, a man who betrayed his best friend by sleeping with his wife.
That's it.
And I will tell you very simply, I don't like Harold Pinter. I'm sorry. I am not a fan. I really do not understand the attraction here, and I didn't understand it with this. I mean, it's a very nice dramedy, two best friends.
Oh, you think it's a dramedy?
Well, yes, in this case.
Whoa, okay.
One friend betraying the other, and again starts long after the affair has ended, with the man and the woman, and then the best scene that's between Hiddleston and Cox, where it's so British and so refined and so proper, and they're saying, and the scene is basically, oh, you knew? I didn't know you knew. I thought you knew that I knew. And it really, the chemistry between the two of them is wonderful, and I wish the rest of the play
Hiddleston
and Cox. Yes, I wish it were the same between Hiddleston and Ashton, or Ashton and Cox. And interestingly, even when the third character is not in a scene, they have them on stage watching, which is an interesting touch. I'm not quite sure why, but I guess it's just to explore the relationship between the three of them, because they are best friends, and the husband feels betrayed, but the lover also feels betrayed, interestingly. I'm not sure how the woman feels.
That's okay.
Nor do I understand why she's barefoot most of the time.
That's a good point. And it isn't explained, so we don't need to go into it.
Okay.
We could theorize, but okay. This is the first time that I haven't felt that the woman was the object of desire in this play. The object of the desire in this production is the friendship between the two men. You hit the nail on the head. The woman here is totally ancillary. She's a prize. She's a prize when she's her husband's wife. She's a prize when she's and then she's tossed aside. She's no longer. And she
certainly has the attractiveness.
She does. She's extremely attractive.
Yes.
And here's what I thought, and I thought the direction of this was brilliant. I agree with you on Pinter in that I go in and out on him, but it always depends on the production. And it's now 30 years or more since this play was originally done, and I've seen it already 3 times. And it's so intriguing. I've seen it with Americans. I've seen it doing British accents, But you're right. This is terribly, terribly British. And only the Brits really get the kind of, because if you've never lived in England, and I have, there's a superficiality to a certain level of society to which these people belong, where there is no emotion that comes to the surface. So the whole idea of a scandal, that would never happen. Oh, you're sleeping with my wife? Oh, well, cheerio. And you keep up the good pose. But this is the first time that I realized that the woman is not an equal partner in this. And of course, from the time period, and of course from Pinter himself, who was very much a misogynist, there are other plays, The Homecoming among them, where the woman is an object and not even though she's an instigator, she's still an object. So I found this fascinating. I liked this better than I've ever liked it before. I got your word when you said dramedy. I thought, that's interesting, because we're so far removed from this kind of, oh my God, they're friends, and that we can look at it with that kind of jaded eye and laugh at this. It's not meant, it was not meant when it was written to be laughed at. It was very serious. And the director, the director is wonderful. He's done this. This came right from the West End, and his name is James Lloyd.
Yes, Jamie Lloyd.
I
okay, we're running to the end, so
loved it. Thought the staging was brilliant, keeping everybody in the frame, because it is.
I will agree with you on the staging. I will agree. I did enjoy the performances, especially the two lead men, and less so the leading lady, but again, you can certainly see why she is such an object of desire. But I can really only give this 2.5 playbills. Love the performances, love the atmosphere. don't like the play.
Agree with you, don't like the play, don't like the concept behind it, but boy, was this well done. A lot of heat, a lot of
Agreed.
stuff, and I would give it 4.5. I really, really enjoyed it, which I didn't expect to. I was like, oh, I don't want to see this again.
Neither did I, and my expectations were met.
This I wanted to see again so much. Charlie and I disagreed about this play the first time out. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it again. But I couldn't wait to see this because it was moving from an arena to a regular Broadway stage, and there was a lot of the mirrored. I thought the background might be a problem. Well, it moved brilliantly. The moving enhanced certain aspects of it. Same cast. I think the young woman. I think Kenesha is a different actress.
This is Joaquina
Kalukana, but I think she's a new actress. I think the other actress is in a series right now, and I won't. If I'm wrong, write me a letter.
But continue.
Anyway, so otherwise it's the same cast that we saw, which but deeper. And I liked this Kenesha better. She had a sense of what was happening, and I understood. And maybe it's because it's the second time I've seen it. But very briefly, it's 3 couples, interracial, straight, gay, mixed, whether it's the man who's black or the woman who's black, and it takes place in slave plantations.
In a slave plantation.
Immersion therapy, where the 2 couples are having, well, all 3 couples are having difficulty in their sexual relationships, and this is supposed to get them out from under the foot of.
And in fact, we do see them initially role playing. We don't know
in slave times.
We don't know that at the time, although there are hints, like the gay couple is wearing Calvin Klein underwear. So you're initially
and Kenesha twerks to Rihanna,
she twerks, and this time around, Paul Alexander Nolan, who plays her husband Jim, he in this role play is the foreman, and you can see he's uncomfortable in the role, which figures in later to the play. Essentially, I found it a little more interesting the second time around because I knew what was coming.
Right.
My initial complaint was the first 3 scenes seemed very redundant. You know, this master-slave relationship, and it's all leading to the same thing. Of course, now you understand why.
It's not. We know that it's not.
The therapy, which comprises the majority of this play is like over 2 hours and no intermission, so head to the restroom
by like that.
before you
Just
get
like
in there.
that.
Not to me. It seemed not stereotypical racially, but stereotypically of therapy. They pull out,
definitely.
And that's a large part of the play, and it really turned me off. The final scene, which is strictly between one of the couples, the twerking lady and her. I think he's British.
Yeah, he plays British. Yes,
plays
so
British,
not the actor,
and it's a very powerful scene, much more so this time.
Yes,
than it was the last time.
They talk about demons in the walls, and when they do that, they put lights on all around the theater.
Right. And it's basically she wants to be abused, or at least a facsimile of being abused. She wants the master slave just to exorcise demons.
She doesn't want to be abused. She wants him to be in power over her. That's not the same. Abuse means being beaten.
Okay.
But she wants him to take power
to
over her.
Dominate, but
to be dominated.
in a unusual way, shall we say.
And it would be role play because they have a safe word, which is, I won't give it away, but it's a safe word. Right. And we told a lot about the play, and I don't want to spoil it any more than, I mean, all the reviews have gone into great detail. But it's interesting because in the middle play, with a mulatto man and a blonde woman, her thing is that she feels powerless and she wants more power in the relationship. So she wants to dominate. Interesting dynamic.
Right.
And in the gay couple, the lighter skinned of the gay couple keeps yelling, "I'm not white, I'm not white." We think maybe he's Latinx in some way. He doesn't.
Well, I think he doesn't. I don't think he wants the stigma, excuse me, of being white, because he obviously is white.
Well, in this play, it is a stigma.
Yes.
There's no question. But what it opens up for so much more, especially with what's going on now in the world and what's been going on, is that it's 400 years after slavery, and well,
no, hardly. It's less than 200.
I'm sorry, 200 years. You're not thinking the United
States. Not even.
It's 200. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's 1609. Okay. Which is that is.
Well, slavery ended in the 1800s.
But it started. No.
Yes.
Please, I'm sorry. What I was saying was something else. Okay. It started in this country in 1609. Okay. That being said, that is 400 years. I was right.
Well, I thought you said ended.
No, I didn't say anything about ended. What I said was The stigma of slavery has not ended. That's what you heard, ended. Has not ended. It continues to cause problems among people. These happen to be couples who really love each other, one thinks. But what about just people on the street? You know, there is it's ingrained in our very society, and it's never truly been addressed. After the Holocaust was put into school syllabuses right away. Right. Slavery is still not being addressed in a normal fashion. By normal fashion, I mean as a real history subject for younger children. It still isn't being addressed. So, you know, it's just a long term in the stream.
Okay, we don't have time for political. Your conclusion on the play. But this is a political
play. That's the whole point.
Well,
it is a political play. It's a brilliant play. The young playwright, whose name is Jeremy Harris, wrote this play while he was still at Yale Drama School. He is part of the future of the American.
Well, it was interesting. There was one comment on it by. By Mr. Sulu. I'm blanking out on his name. He said, you know, I've been in an interracial, and certainly not my experience. So,
but they weren't. But that's not about being interracial in his respect.
Right.
It's about being interracial,
again,
black-white. That's specifically
again.
What
I don't know enough interracial couples to know if this is their experience or not. I am judging this strictly and whether this is stretching a little too much. I kind of think it is on the topic. As a play, you know, certainly it has its moments. Again, the majority of the play is the therapy, and that went way too long. The acting is phenomenal, but certainly hardly above average in here. I mean, good actors, a good production, but I will give this 3.5.
Okay, just to mention a couple of other names, though. The two therapists, Ebony Flowers and
yes, a gay interracial couple.
Yes, but Paul Alexander Nolan as the Brit is just phenomenal.
He is.
And Sullivan
he
Jones
is the standout.
as the mulatto violinist on the plantation is fantastic. The two male lovers, Otto Blackson Wood and James Kusati Moyer, are also excellent.
All right.
Phenomenal acting.
And your final conclusion, Leslie. We have to move on.
I just want to name the director. I know we have to move on. Robert O'Hara, whom we love for his own plays, and I would give it 5. If I could give it 6, I would give it 6.
All right.
And I liked it even more than because
I certainly liked it more, but nowhere nearly as much as you did. We have to move on.
Okay.
Derren Brown in Secret, and now, as they say in Britain, for something totally different. This
I didn't get to see this one.
To me, is the kind of act that years ago you would have seen in the Catskills. It's really not something I would have expected on Broadway, but then again, neither was Jackie Mason until he hit Broadway with The World According to Me, and this man has won the Olivier Award, I think, twice, so that's the equivalent of the Tonys in Britain.
Yep, it is.
And I will say he is quite good at what he does, which is to either fool you, mislead you, manipulate you. He says he doesn't read your mind, but it certainly seems like he does. So Secret is basically him. He's essentially a magician, which is appropriate because this is the Court Theater with a magic show with Doug Heading, written by Stephen Schwartz, who did Wicked, played 40 years ago. And he will tell you what you're thinking. He will do sleight of the hand and sometimes sleight of the body. And it's intriguing. I won't give anything away, but I will say there is a banana that's on stage, and you're supposed to see if you can tell when a gorilla comes to grab it. But then that means you won't be watching Derren, so most people aren't going to bother to see the gorilla. But that, right? Yes, it is misdirection. And here's something that was pointed out to me. He says he doesn't have any assistants in the audience.
Oh.
But he also says he's going to lie to us. So, we don't know.
So did you enjoy it?
Oh, yes, I did.
Did he fool you?
Oh, yes, constantly.
Okay.
Again, and fooled me, and how he did it, I do not know. So it's basically, is this the type of entertainment you like? Because you probably won't see it done any better, and unfortunately, they don't have this type of thing in the Catskills anymore. So I will give it 3 3/4 playbills.
It actually had an intermission.
It did.
Did everybody come back?
Yes, so far as I know. I wasn't, that was one thing that maybe he just made them disappear. Because you don't find out the secret, and I'm not going to tell you the secret, but it comes when you're least expecting it, And oh, it's quite clever.
I feel bad about missing it, but you know, I don't think magic necessarily belongs on Broadway. But what did you think it was?
Again, this is something that I would have expected to see in the Catskills.
Or
Not,
off-Broadway,
or
maybe?
yeah, I mean, we had someone like this at a weekend that a religious weekend that I was at. That's, but.
What would you give it?
As I said, 3 3/4.
Oh, you did say. I
Yes.
didn't hear you say.
Okay.
I also saw something that Charlie didn't see down at our old favorite, the New York Theater Workshop,
Yes.
which, by the way, is where slave play began. So
Yes.
they've got slave play in Hadestown. They're hot, man.
yeah.
And before that, they were the band's visit.
Okay.
So
We're a
ta-da.
little
they
low
weren't.
on
No, they
time,
weren't. They
so-
weren't the band's visit. That was the Atlantic. Anyway, this is a woman. I do not know her previous work, and it puts me at a disadvantage. Her name is Mafoniso Udofia, and she does. These are stories about Africans who have come of their own volition to America. They are immigrants, and they are making their way. And in the first play, Runboyrun, the leading adult character is a college professor who is a black college professor who's just been demoted to assistant professor, partially because his students have said he smells. This is a very specific thing. His wife lives at home and is afraid to go out, which is very much like what we saw in
Medea.
It wasn't called Medea, but I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, and is a plight of a lot of female immigrants who come and are frightened by the new world.
Right.
And evidently, according to all the notes, which are helpful, but I read afterwards, not before, this play refers back to her other plays. So we're thrown right in the middle of a situation where we find out that they do this over and over and over again, and that she thinks there are ghosts in the house. And so that's one play. There's a second play called In Old Age, which is much more accessible.
So it's a 2-play evening.
2-play evening. And that first play also had the difficulty for me of the particular African accents. We've seen 10 plays with African accents, and I haven't had any trouble until this one. So I don't know why this particular, and it's about the Biafra situation, the war in Biafra, so maybe it's a specific accent. In the second play, it's the same actress at a different stage of time, and it's a 2-character play. And she is, something is broken in her house, and a nice fellow who's not really, who found out, who saw a note on a board at a senior center, comes to help her out. And so it's very interesting. She's very bossy. He helps her get rid of the ghosts in the house, but it was more entertaining to me than the first play. Overall, I would give the first play, Runboyrun, I would give maybe a 2.5, and the second play, In Old Age, I would give maybe a 3.5. So my overall thing would be 3 for the 2 plays. Interesting. It's an enormous work that she's embarked on.
Okay.
That writer.
Right. Well, we also have Wives by Jacqueline Bacchus, who gave us India Pale Ale, which we both enjoyed. Yep. This is 4 playlets, and the first one takes different times, different places. The first one, I think, is in France, where the king has a wife for breeding and a mistress for fun, makes no secret of which one he likes better. The women fight. It's kind of like a very soap opera with a lot of profanity until the women realize they have to work together. Second, to me, the more interesting one takes place at Ernest Hemingway's funeral. His widow and 2 of his ex-wives, the 4th is dead, sit and discuss Papa and basically also sisterhood solidarity. Third act gets a little strange. Then we're going to India.
Those weren't strange.
To India, and there are again 2 women. And a Raja, and the women are defending the Raja and trying to keep this British agent from entering the women's harem, I guess. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he shouldn't be in there, and basically they're teaming up to defend their husband. So you're kind of going to the side. Then the 4th act, a woman is joining, a college student joining a coven, a witch's coven. And I have no idea where that's going. It's like the play starts off with one theme, with sisterhood, with wives. Each of the women, by the way, wear a shirt that says first wife, second wife, third wife, which we see as they're changing. One, Adina Verson has an extreme comical moment in the first act as this, like, Julia Child, basically in the castle. All in all, it starts very interesting and very enjoyable, and then it just loses its direction. So I'm really not sure where she was going with this.
Well, I think, as you say, I think she started out to write a play about sisterhood, And using wives to do it is kind of because of sister wives, which is a kind of an interesting concept. And then I think she lost her way, and I agree with you on that. But I like her writing very much. And she has an insight into things that, perhaps because of her background, she's an, oh goodness, I'm going to forget what you
So what would you give it?
What would I give it? I enjoyed it. Up until the last one, I was really having a good time.
Yeah.
So I would give it 3.
Yeah, I would say 3 is accurate. It starts sliding
Out
with
of 4, because we didn't out of the 4 playlists.
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our interview with Ben West, the writer and performer of 45 Minutes from Coontown at the York Theatre. Please watch. Hi, it's Leslie Hoban Blake, and tonight we are interviewing Ben West, who is doing a show called, forgive me for saying this, 45 Minutes from Coontown. And I laugh because I have old sheet music that uses the phrase, and I don't know what to do with it because it's in my. I'll look it up, and maybe I'll give it to you.
And I'm Charles Gross, not to be confused with the person being interviewed tonight. And so, judging by the, I guess, politically incorrect name of your musical, you're not pulling any punches here, are you?
Oh, certainly not. I mean, the idea of the show is to really take an unflinching look at the history of this subject matter and its connection to the racial dynamics of the country, both in terms of the American musical itself and then the artists, the black artists in particular with this particular piece, who were writing and informing and influencing the sound and the shows throughout really the course of its history.
And you're doing this in 45 minutes?
Not in 45 minutes. It's a 90-minute, one act, no intermission. But 45 minutes is the title, yeah.
Who are some of the performers or artists that you cover in the show?
A great number of people. Looking early on, I would say some of the early figures are Bob Cole, who was actually not well known, I would say, and yet I refer to him as the father of black musical theater. He is an incredibly important figure and certainly one of my personal heroes. Other people we discuss early on, I would say Ernest Hogan, who is perhaps a little more prominent, and certainly Burt Williams is a name with which a lot of people may be familiar. Then later, we go all the way to George C. Wolfe, I will say. So basically from the Bob Cole, Hogan, Williams, and Walker through George C. Wolfe. So everyone in the middle really runs the gamut from, Fats Waller we're talking about. You'll hear music from Donald Hayward, Porter Granger, an amalgam of people. It's very much about the history of the American musical theater and specifically black musical theater. It's actually the second piece in my trilogy of musicals about the history of the American musical. So the first piece, which is Showtime, the First 100 Years of the American Musical, deals with the evolution of the form itself and its cultural impact, social impact, and that goes from minstrelsy, vaudeville, all the way through 1990s. Then this piece really takes a deeper dive into black musical theater. So it's specifically about the African-American artists who were working at the time and the influences that they had on the stage form. And so then the third piece will be about specifically female writers.
Oh, because I noticed you had Mickey Grant and Viney Carroll here.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Both of whom, well, I knew Mickey and Viney because I come from that time period. I'm old enough to have known them both. And so that was very exciting that you include the female as well.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, oh, sure. And they are, both of them, of course, in the female installment as well. And it's actually interesting that Miss Carroll in particular, I would say, was one of the most influential forces, I would say, in the resurgence of black musicals in the, shall we say, late 60s and 70s. Because Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope is hers, even though the score is by Mickey Grant, and then, of course, Trumpets of the Lord, and Your Arms Too Short, To Box with God. So, I mean, she's really was quite a force, I would say, even if we don't especially remember those shows today, or they were of their time, if that's a...
Well, I remember a revival of Your Arms Too Short. That's a very
with Patti LaBelle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Al Green, I think, was in it also.
Oh, I think that's right. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
You do for another revival. You never know. I mean,
we'll see. Well,
times being what they are.
yeah, indeed.
I'm curious what you think of the state of the art is now.
The art being musical theater, or black artists in musical theater?
Black artists in musical theater. But if you want to expand on musical theater in general, I'd love to hear about that too.
You got half an hour to say? Tell us in 30 seconds or less, yes.
The Cliff Notes version.
Interesting. That'll be my one-word version. But
I think that's a word that most of us critics are familiar with.
I will say, just in terms of diversity, since this particular show is about black artists, I think certainly there's been in the last several years a greater, well, greater is not really perhaps the right word, a strong focus on diversity. So I think, and we have also a number of emerging and newly established African American writers, in particular, working in the theater. So I think it's interesting in many respects.
You could get into Doc Brown's DeLorean, go back and see any of the shows or any of the people you covered. What would be your first stop?
Well, we cover in this particular show?
In this particular show.
Well, Bob Cole. Bob Cole. I adore him. He's extraordinary. He's the father of black musical theater, as far as I'm concerned, and was held in tremendous esteem by his colleagues at the time.
What period specifically is that?
He is the one that really masterminded what is considered the first legitimate all-black musical comedy in 1897.
So we have no tape of it then. We have to go by.
I've not found any footage of it. There's definitely his songs have certainly been recorded, but I've not found any sort of film footage of him.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Ben. This has been just delightful. I will be seeing the show tonight. I can't wait.
I'm excited, yeah.
We won't be reviewing it because it's not open for review, but we will put up, you mentioned that you were going to tape something this weekend, and we will put up a snippet of you in performance.
Perfect,
Looking forward to that.
And the show is 45 minutes from Coontown,
Indeed.
written and performed by Ben West.
Correct, yes. And let's just mention also Fran Manerick, who is my musical collaborator on the piece, and Parker S., the art director.
And that is our show for this evening. When you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us two.
On the aisle.
I'm through with worry. Nothing's gonna make me sigh. I'm through with hurry. Bound to live until I die. Come along, no more heart scuffle. Life is but a jubilee. I'll keep on shuffling. Nothing's gonna worry. Ain't no use a hurry. Nothing's gonna worry me.